Hey guys, how's it going? So I was just out here today on a quick little hike. Brought the 22 with me just to see if I could find any squirrels up on this ridge. And yeah, anyway, purpose of today's video, I wanted to discuss through this last couple of years of really kind of diving in and researching what the best for me personally, the best bushcraft knife to bring along daily. So this isn't your big 5 or 6 inch bushcraft knife you throw on your hip all the time. That might work for you in your area where you live. For me though, I need something I can either put around my neck, put in a back pocket, or wear it on my belt and it'd be kind of inconspicuous. My state, it's legal to carry whatever I want, but some states that's not the case, so you gotta follow your laws. But where I live, out here in the woods, you know, I can kind of go and I could be out here, just step out of my door and be out in the wilderness, if you will. So I like to have a knife on me all the time because I'm always doing friction fire, hunting, fishing, trapping, whatever it is, just going on hikes, canoeing, whatever, just being outside generally. I like to have a knife with me. So in that regard, the knife that I think is probably the best one through, like I said, a couple years of research, really breaking it down based on size, capability, steel, even going down to grind and handle material. The knife that I've landed on, which I kind of always had a feeling about, but just kind of solidified my resolve, would be the Bark River Ultralight Bushcrafter. Now, this knife isn't a big knife. You know, it's a little less than a palm on me, but I wear extra large gloves, but I can still get a full grip on the knife to be able to do the task that I want a bushcraft knife to do. In my area, honestly, if I had a saw with me or a hatchet, this is the only knife I'd ever want. All my other knives, my Auroras, some of my LT Wrights and stuff have just kind of been put in the drawer, left aside for this knife to kind of take the place of everything. I've used this knife from fly fishing trips to where I'm gutting trout to, you know, multi-mile hikes, camping trips, hunting trips, whatever. This knife has been along with me to do that, and it's done very, very well at those tasks. Now this one right here is my newest one. As you can tell by the sheath, still pretty and everything. This is the one I've been looking for, but it always either sells out or they don't make it very often, I don't know. But this one is natural canvas micarta, and the blade material is 3V on most of these now. I don't even know if you can get it anything other than 3V. That's all I've ever found. And this one does have brass pins, not that that's terribly important. But let's talk about some of the other ones I've had. I've had 6 or 7 to this point. I don't still have those, obviously. But the ones that the only reason I got rid of them was to purchase another handle material. So it had nothing to do with the knife. But these are the ones I think I've landed on that I'm gonna keep. So, excuse the layers, it's kind of cold out here. Anyway, this is the one I used for the longest time. This is a just green canvas micarta one, which I do like green, and I just cleaned this one up after a few months of not really taking care of it, so it's all nice and pretty. And this is a Bushcrafter style sheath that I bought to go with it. Now they come with this sheath, but for the longest time they came with this horribly awful sheath that looked like it was backwards the whole time, and it just didn't perform very well. But those are the same. And then this one over this last summer has probably gotten the most amount of use. This is the same Ultralight Bushcrafter, but this has a pretty wood material, which I'll give you a close-up for all of these here in a little bit. But anyway, this knife, you know, it's still got some staining on it and a little bit of rust. Whoever says 3V doesn't rust doesn't use their knife very often, if you ask me about it. Yeah, if you put your knife to use, it'll rust up on you a little bit. So that's that one. Those are all Ultralight Bushcrafters, and I did go out and purchase this little dude. This is a mini Bushcrafter, 3V. This one just has polished natural micarta. It was the only one available in natural. That was like the only natural micarta that they had, so I just went ahead and picked that one up. This is a great little neck knife or pocket fixed blade. I do carry this in a little pocket sheath a lot of times, or this sheath that it comes with works pretty good for going around the neck. So that's how this knife gets the majority of use. I do really like wearing this when I go wading for fly fishing, because it just fits right down to my waders and I can just use it really quick. And the blade length is really not an issue, because as you progress in bushcraft, you start to realize that you don't need a humongous knife to do everything. And that's one of the things that I found through doing this for a few years. At first I just wanted the biggest knife possible, and you quickly realize that that's not really what you want. So anyway, let's adjust the camera and get in here, some close-ups, and show you them working, and I'll bring up a few other points. Alright guys, so here are the knives. Once again, these 3 right here are going to be your ultralight Bushcrafters, and then this one here is going to be your mini. Not necessarily the one I would recommend if you're just buying one knife, but where I have a few, this one kind of fills a role that these do fine at, but just if you really want something to put in the pocket, this is what you want. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, this is the one. I had a black one for a very long time, but as you can tell, I just cleaned this one up, so it's nice and pretty. And then here's the one I'm probably going to be using most of the time. And then this is the one that really got a lot of use over the summer, that I really do like. Has a really nice wood grain to it. Now, one thing to note with these knives and any Bark River knife, these are made by hand, kind of, particularly the sanding of the handle. So these handles are not the same thickness in every dimension, which can cause a problem when you're using a Kydex sheath. So that's why they recommend you send in your specific knife to have a sheath made, because the sheath that you order, if it's just a production sheath, probably won't fit. And I'll give you a good example of that right here. So if you can line those up, you can see this amount of material here is much thicker on this knife than on this wooden one. And it's not just a micarta and a wood thing. I had a black one that was about this thin toward the top, or toward the blade. This one's much thicker. This one feels better in the hand, but really you kind of just get used to whichever one you're using. That's one thing. I just wish there was a little more of a consistency between the grinding on the handles, but that's really the only complaint that I can make. So this is the one we're going to work with, because I believe going forward, this is the one that I'm going to try to use the most often. Now, obviously, for your everyday bushcraft knife, it's going to need to be able to baton material, which shouldn't be a problem. I'm trying to do this in the camera. Now, this is kind of a harder material to work with, this wood. It's kind of seasoned. And I've batoned, quite a bit of stuff just for starting fires, doing traps or whatever. And I've never had a problem out of any of my Bark River knives, or the ultralight Bushcrafters. 3V is a really good material. The only issue that I ever run into with it is once it gets dull, it's kind of hard to sharpen back. And this material is a little damp. So I have this right here that's been air dried. And then you obviously want it to be able to feather stick. So when you're feather sticking, you really want those just as thin as possible, little curls. Some people like them to stay on like this. I don't really care. I just kind of pick them up and put them in a pile anyway. So however you want to do it. If it is raining or snowy out, I recommend keeping them on the stick, just because you can kind of keep them up and out of the wet ground a little easier. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you can tell, makes pretty nice curls. you know, in reality, that's all you really want. If your knife can baton material and cut really, really fine curls, that's going to be pretty good representation of how that knife will perform in a lot of other tasks. Especially if you can get really a very flat cut going for like paper thin shavings, because that'll kind of tell you how your knife's going to skin for you also, that I've found out. Obviously you're going to want to be able to use a ferro rod. It works just fine. I like to use out here toward the end of the blade more than right here, just because I find I get a little bit better of a flick on it, but either one will work. So yeah, all in all, one of the, I think, best knives out there. If you're just wanting to put one knife on your person, go out, do whatever you want to do, have a good, reliable knife, just in case you get in a situation or you just want to practice some skills. This does have a Scandi grind, but it's much more of a Scandi Vex, so just keep that in mind when you're stropping or sharpening. I just use sandpaper on a strop and then some stropping compound, and I keep them hair popping sharp. So yeah, thanks guys. Let me know below what you think the best overall kind of just do all, which includes everyday carry bushcraft knife that you can get. This is the one that I choose.